Before we begin today, I want to gently let you know that this episode includes discussion of pregnancy loss and stillbirth. If this topic is tender for you, please feel free to pause, step away, or come back when you're ready. There's no pressure here, only grace. So there are some episodes that feel easy to record. Of course, the encouraging ones, the reflective ones, the ones where the words come quickly. But this is not one of those. But it is an important one. Today, I'm sharing a part of my story that I don't share lightly. Not because it lacks meaning, but because it carries weight. And if you've ever walked through grief, loss, or unanswered prayers, you know exactly what I mean. This episode is not meant to break your heart. It's meant to sit with you in the quiet place where heartbreak lives and remind you that God has not abandoned you there. Welcome back to Makin Macon Encouragement in Chaos. I'm Susan Rayner, pastor's wife, homeschool mom, small business owner, and your friend in the middle of a life that has known both miracles and deep loss. If you're new here, I'm really glad you found this space. And if you've been walking with me through this season of episodes, thank you for trusting me with your time and your heart. So it's February, and this month always carries a weight for me because it marks the birthday of Samuel, a son I never got to raise, but will never forget. I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because grief doesn't follow a calendar. And some dates stay loud no matter how much time passes. Years ago, after the miracle of my daughter's birth, we found out we were expecting another child. Our daughter was almost 3 years old, and we were so over the moon. Given my health history, every pregnancy felt sacred, fragile, but full of hope. We went to our appointments, we made plans, we dreamed. Yet at 22 weeks, I went in for an ultrasound to find out whether we were having a boy or a girl. My husband and my daughter were both with me, and it was supposed to be a joyful moment, the kind of moment that you remember forever. But instead, it became the moment my world stopped. The technician couldn't find a heartbeat. She called another technician in. No one was telling me anything. It was just silence. And then finally, the words that no parent is prepared to hear. There was no heartbeat. I can remember walking out of that hospital and feeling denial wrap itself around me like a shield. I refused to believe that this could be real. I prayed, I pleaded, I reminded God of His promises. I told myself there was still time. Surely He would intervene. Yet the time came, and 2 days later, I delivered a baby. I delivered a baby I would never hear cry. I held him. I studied his tiny hands and feet. I memorized his face, and then I had to let him go. We named him Samuel, not because we understood why, but because we trusted that God still saw what we couldn't. The days that followed were heavy in ways that I don't have language for. In those early days when I didn't know what to pray or even what to say, there was one scripture the Lord kept bringing back to my heart. Blessed be the name of the Lord from this time forth and forevermore. I didn't cling to it because everything felt okay. I clung to it because it didn't. It reminded me that even in loss, even in confusion, even when my prayers felt unanswered, God was still worthy of praise. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want well-meaning answers or theological explanations. I just wanted God. And yet, even in that place, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt broken. I felt confused. I felt angry at times, but I did not feel alone. And that distinction matters because grief does not mean God has left. It means you're human. I wish that I could tell you that healing was quick, that faith erased the pain, but it didn't. There were moments when grief ambushed me out of nowhere, moments when joy felt unreachable, moments when I told myself I could not survive that kind of pain again. But slowly, and I do mean slowly, God met me in small ways. And one morning, not long after, I woke up with a song in my heart, something that hadn't happened since the loss. The words were simple, but they carried me when I couldn't carry myself. I still trust you because you've been so faithful to me. It wasn't loud worship. It wasn't a breakthrough moment. It was a quiet, steady reassurance that even in my grief, God was still right there with me. A scripture that steadied my heart. A song that rose in my spirit when words failed. And a counselor who walked with me when I couldn't walk alone. And somewhere in the middle of the unanswered prayer, I realized something sacred. God does not require us to understand Him in order to trust Him. He does not shame our questions. He does not rush our grief. He does not leave when the miracle doesn't come the way we prayed it would. And I want to say this clearly, especially if this episode finds you in a tender place. Grieving is not a lack of faith. Seeking help is not weakness. Needing support does not mean you are failing God. Some losses change us, and God is not afraid of who we become in the process. I don't know why some prayers are answered the way we hope, and others are not. I don't know why some miracles come through life and others come through loss. But I do know this: God is faithful. He was faithful in the silence, faithful in the waiting, faithful in the questions, faithful when joy felt unreachable. And years later, He was faithful again. And if you've been listening for a while, you know that this isn't the end of our story. God didn't erase the pain, but He did continue to write redemption. In earlier episodes, I shared those chapters in more details. In a tangible miracle waiting on God's promise, I told the story of my daughter, the promise fulfilled after years of waiting. And in a tangible miracle too, when fear fights the promise, I shared how God brought our youngest son into our lives after this loss and how I had to slowly learn to trust Him again when fear had taken hold of my heart. I share that not to rush past the pain, but to remind you that grief does not disqualify you from future hope. Sometimes trusting God again is a process, and He is patient in it. If you're listening today carrying your own unanswered prayer, maybe a loss, maybe a dream deferred, maybe a season that still doesn't make sense, I want you to hear this. God has not abandoned you. You are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to ask for help. You are allowed to sit in the pain and still trust Him. Faith doesn't mean pretending everything is okay. It means believing God is still present when it isn't. As we close today, I want to leave you with this encouragement, not a conclusion, but as a hand to hold. If you are hurting, please don't walk through it alone. Find someone safe. Find support. Find space to heal. And if today's episode stirred something in you, know that you are seen, even here, even now. And thank you for trusting me with this story. Thank you for listening with tenderness. And as always, remember, I'm always praying for you, even if I don't know who you are. God bless.